Hello friends, welcome back to this mesmerizing subject of integrated marketing communication. We have been pondering on consumer behavior, the perspective associated with consumer behavior, and sort of tried to build up the ground on how to understand this. And by now you would have realized that without understanding consumer behavior, we might not be able to put up the right kind of a message in front of the customer or attract the customer at the right time, right place and so on. And it's a competitive world, we know that. And on the other side, it's more or less an unsolvable puzzle wherein so many things have been tried and so many theories are there, and continuously people have been working upon how to understand human behavior at large and consumer behavior, which is our main concern. Let us see, we will in this section we will be focusing upon the relationship of consumer behavior and communication, and we will try to analyze how some theories might be of use, how a perspective can take us there, can help us in understanding about what marketers do, and if we are marketers, then what we would be doing actually. So, let's initiate thinking about consumer behavior and communication, and let's see this relationship with two perspectives. And before going to those perspectives, the reference is that for this particular discussion I would be relying upon Advertising and Promotions, an integrated brand approach, published by Cengage Learning, 6th edition, and authored by Semenek, Allen, O'Guen and Kaufman. So, this is the reference book, and the chapter on consumer behavior would be helpful there. Now, coming back to how to look into relationship of consumer behavior and communication. It's complex basically, and I'll be driving you through several elements which are generating time and again. Now, one of the perspectives is that it's called psychological perspective. Trying to understand what happens in the consumer's mind, what consumer might be thinking actually. So, why someone would be reaching to a particular kind of a decision of purchasing something basically, what message would do to him. So, this perspective portrays the consumer as a systematic decision maker who process the information, including information from the advertisers. So, a very organized kind of method of reaching to a conclusion and decision. That is what consumer does. Really, do we do that? Not sure. And that is, I am not putting this question in front of you to confuse you, but just to draw your attention that as consumers you would also be thinking systematically or unsystematically. Try and work out how you are thinking, what is your way of. Recall some last purchase you have made and try and focus upon that. Was that purchase very organized, or you reached to that purchase through systematic thinking while looking into the message and then analyzing that message and deciphering that message and going that. Remember, we went for that kind of a description on sender to receiver kind of a thing basically. So, that we have discussed last time. And the other perspective which I will take you through is that consumers are social beings who largely behave as a function of social circumstances and forces. Society, the social structure and several other elements drives consumers. They take influence from there, they take cues from there, they are guided by those elements. So, that would be also very interesting, and you see while I am talking about this, I have already suggested the book, several other books are there, several other articles are there. Whichever author you choose to take as a reference point, you would realize that all the authors are suggestive of the fact that look at yourself through a psychologist's perspective or a sociologist's perspective or both. And the conclusion for today's discussion is that we would be looking at both the perspectives, and I want you to dwell upon looking at consumer or yourself as a consumer with both the perspectives simultaneously. That is what we intend to do. So, let us see where do we reach. You see, when we talk of consumer as a decision maker, so we refer to an individual who can be seen as a purposeful decision maker who either weighs and balance alternatives or resort typically in times of complexity and too much of information to simple decision rules of thumb heuristics to make things easier. Does it sound complex? Do we do that? I do not know if you are comfortable with this kind of a description about yourself as a consumer. Let us see basically, you know. So, when we say purposeful decision maker who weighs and balances alternatives, this is what precisely happens in most of the times, but how do we do that? Have we ever noticed ourselves going through this kind of a thing basically? For example, guests are coming and what should I bring home, and what kind of a soft drink and what kind of fruits or what kind of sweets or what, this or that or this ice cream or that ice cream. So, do you weigh the alternatives? Do you do that, or you do not do it generally, kind of people would have something salty, something sweet. So, this is the seasonal thing and this is how. So, there are several kinds of things. For example, you are purchasing a car now, it is slightly difficult, or you have to purchase a simple shirt many a times. Have you seen people spending lots of time in purchasing one single piece of cloth, basically imagining how would they look and several times looking into it. So, all through, you can choose any product or any example to decipher this basically, and while doing this continuously I would like you to remember upon the advertisements which would have influenced you, which would have come to your mind. And just to remind you, heuristics here pertains to involving or serving as an aid to learning, discovery or problem solving by experimental and especially trial and error methods. This I have taken from Merriam-Webster dictionary, this you can access on Google basically, references there. So, just to give you, because when we say simple decision rules of thumb heuristics to make things easier, that means trial and error or evaluation on the basis of feedback, kind of going back to what do we have in mind, kind of. So you see, when we talk of this kind of a complex element of how we reach to decisions going through alternatives, role of communication becomes emphasizingly strong, because that not only becomes the reason for your complexity or complexity of your thought basically. We have several messages all around you, you have several choices being given to you all around, and on the other side it makes it simple as well, because there you have some brand promotion which gives you a clue that this is what is coming your way. There you have some perspective associated with that brand, some existing thought process about, and we will see that, Recently you would have seen full page advertisements given by several large online stores and offline stores as well. They have started advertising about huge sales coming your way, lots of mobile phones, lots of utensils, many things. So, those advertisements are giving you cues, and are they actually initiating a thought of that there has been something which you should be buying. So, just keep that in mind and look at this with again put yourself there, yourself as an individual who is a purposeful decision maker. And I should not miss on this, have you heard of neuromarketing these days? Definitely, you must have heard of this. People have been talking about this neuromarketing, touching nerves. No, not at all, not at all. There is an interesting article, if you are interested, it was published in Harvard Business Review on January 23rd, 2019, written by Eben Harrell, and then the title of the article is Neuromarketing: What You Need to Know. And it talks about science intervening into the brain of the customer or people in general, and marketers trying to decipher something, how people think. Now, that is very interesting. Science plays a role everywhere, but are we going actually there to understand how brain functions to put up advertisements in front of customers? That is very exciting, and people, that article talks about how Facebook actually messaged 700,000 people on the basis of the understanding they developed through that understanding related to brain, and several organizations, they say that they are hiring neuroscientists now to understand the functioning of the brains of the customers. Very exciting basically. So, do we require doctors now to do consumer behavior researches, neurologists thinking that way? That can be very interesting, and it is coming up as a very large interdisciplinary area, or I should say people are actually working on that. So, and that article, I have just taken it from that article. So, just to decipher something here basically, or just to narrate it here. So, it says that neuromarketing loosely refers to the measurement of physiological and neural signals to gain insight into customers' motivations, preferences and decisions. How one gets motivated because of anything as a stimuli. And here we are talking about a message. Here we are talking of words, symbols, tunes. We have been referring to those exciting tunes. We have seen so many tunes last time as well. So, motivations, preferences and decisions which can help inform creative advertising, product development, pricing and other marketing areas. How do they do that? They say that they are doing it through brain scanning, which measures neural activity, and physiological tracking, which measures eye movement and other proxies for that activity, and these are some of the common things basically. So, they are deciphering my eye movement at this moment. Oh, that's exciting, that's exciting. So, you see, this is how world is going on. I just wanted to give you a glimpse on. You may, I would not be going deeper into this subject basically. You may definitely look into articles published on this area, and that will definitely give you a very good idea of how we are actually trying to methodically understand the science of thinking basically. And I have been repeatedly referring about Daniel Kahneman's work and several other authors. So you may think of going there as well. Now, coming back to the line where we started, an individual can be seen as purposeful decision maker who either weighs and balances alternatives or resort typically in times of complexity to simple decision making. Let us simplify this. Let us look into this process into categorized into 4 stages. First, need recognition. Second, information search and alternative evaluation, second stage. Then purchase happens, and post purchase use and evaluation. Does it simplify things? Yes, I think, because here you can easily think of that at every stage, and I requested you to think about yourself as a consumer while reading this or listening to this or watching this video, because there you would be looking at yourself as a consumer, and you would be thinking in terms of need recognition, and then you would be thinking in terms of what kind of a communication is influencing that particular need generation or recognition for yourself. And you can refer to Marketing Management by Philip Kotler, and there you would find 9 types of needs or several other subtypes of needs, and you would realize that all of us are need driven. There are some latent needs, some are other types of needs and so on. So I would not again go into that, but again just to give you a clue. So that's an interesting book. Every marketing student reads that book usually. Now it has become almost mandatory. kind of. So, I also read that in my college days, and since then I am reading that, and all my PhD scholars and MBA students, they read that. So, now you see, we saw this in earlier definition which we discussed about consumer behavior, which was from American Marketing Association, and there also this kind of categorization was mentioned. So, let's see these 4 stages slightly one by one, and try to decipher how integrated marketing communication is playing a role or might play a role. Let us look at both the stages basically. Now, here when we say is playing a role, think of yourself as a consumer, and might play a role, put yourself in the shoes of a marketer. How to imagine that, what if you understand how consumer thinks, or you tend to understand how consumer thinks. So, then this X message would play a particular role at X stage, and if a consumer is at X stage, let us say need recognition stage. So, you might have something from your side which may influence that stage. So, think like a marketer and think like a consumer, which is definitely we are doing at this moment as well. So, now you see, need recognition state arises when one's desired state of affairs differs from one's actual state of affairs. I need something, that means I have a desire about something basically, and it can be as little as small as about eating an ice cream today. I have this in mind since morning that somehow by evening I must have an ice cream somehow, kind of. Or Sunday jalebis or jalebi Sundays, have you heard about that? No, kind of, I do not know. There are rituals in homes basically, jalebis on Sundays, kind of, samosas in evenings. I remember someone I know very closely used to eat one samosa every day at the evening, and I also love samosa basically. So you have a desire. So there is a perspective of difference of state of affairs. So this state is accompanied by a mental discomfort or anxiety that motivates action. There is some dissonance, and that requires action, that you are tending to move towards that. Now, the severity of this discomfort can be widely variable depending upon the genesis of the need, and COVID has given us all the understanding about it. You see, we have faced several kinds of scarcities in due course of time. So that is where severity comes in. COVID has shown us several examples of severity basically. So, for example, medical supplies, food during lockdowns, it was not scarce, but definitely supply was sometimes scant, sometimes it was timely, and there have been incidents of medical supplies shortages, which fortunately now are not there. We have made up, and India is doing exceptionally well in this case. That's that's a happy thing for all of us. So we are being guided by responsible people all around. So, and there are many instances wherein consumers may feel or may be told that they need this actually. Now you see, now when you have a need recognition in perspective, you understand that there is a difference between two state of affairs, desired and kind of actual state. So as a marketer, if you understand that, then you can tell the customer that you need this. You need actually this at this moment. Thanda matlab Coca-Cola. Remember when customer feels thirsty, summertime, there was a beautiful advertisement related to children playing in sun, and that was a drink which mothers used to give their children, basically some glucose drink wherein they rejuvenated their energy. So that is precisely what you are telling the customer, that you need this at this moment. So you are feeling hungry, there was a chocolate wafers advertisement, very wonderful communication, wherein when people are hungry they feel angry, somehow they need a crunch or something. Well, I do not remember exactly what was that advertisement, but surf about that and you would realize that the storyboard of that advertisement talks about need recognition in terms of when you feel hungry, and for that instance that particular time you want something to eat, and that solves the purpose actually, and that did well, that did well. And Maslow's hierarchy plays an important role in the development of that understanding. I would not dwell into what Maslow's hierarchy is, but I would definitely recommend you to go and understand that. That is a benchmark for developing so many kinds of understandings in today's world, and it is a wonderful thing basically, you must know that, and many of you would definitely be knowing that. So, it is just a reference point, and go to that and try and understand that. So, that larger hierarchical structure tells us that when and how we need what largely, and that can also get an impetus or a support from whatever kinds of discussions we are having at this moment both ways. So, now the prime job of communication here is what? It is to make the connection between the recognition of the need and the means to fulfill that need, definitely through products and services or anything else, but communication is the bridge. At many of our stages, and definitely having this in mind that you are taking up this course voluntarily to understand integrated marketing communication, my attention gets drawn towards communication from the portal would have reached you somehow, and that message would have generated a bridge between your need of gaining insight into this kind of a subject and the existence of this subject as a product kind of. So, that particular thing has to be seen that way, and this can be done through functional as well as emotional indicators also. We will see many examples, and this time I would not be playing so many tunes and so many advertisements, although I will be infusing one or two later on. But here I want you to, as soon as you finish off listening to this video, I want you to go to some of the messages and try and associate those with the subject area which we are pondering upon here. Now, you see, the benefits have to be appreciated, and we have seen this in the preceding discussions wherein communication projects the elements of positioning. But there we conclude, or here we reach to a conclusion that those must be in the form of fulfillment of needs. So, you see, need recognition and the positioning of products, initial positioning of the products, somewhere there is a parity between the orientation of the discussions, and we have talked about role of communication in positioning the products actually, because here you want something, a child wants a doll and there is a need, and Barbie comes in with a message basically. So, you want a refrigerator, a company comes in with that message basically. You want to see a movie and Netflix exactly prompts that movie at you at the right moment, because they are tracking, we have talked about this, they are tracking how you actually look into basically. So, how algorithms play that kind of a role, we have already discussed that. So, that is how communication is actually playing a particular kind of a role. Now comes into second stage, information search and alternative evaluation. During the information search and alternative evaluation, there is an ample opportunity for the advertiser to influence the decisions of the customer, because that is a wider stage actually, not exactly in terms of time span, might be, but for example, where lots of price is not involved or decision has to be made quickly. So, there the time span would become but the process is same. So, many a times you look into things, for example, you are making some travel plans. So, there you take a time of 2, 3, 4, 6 months actually, you are planning for next summers for example. So, you start planning at this moment, and then you think of so information search, where to go, where would you be staying, what kind of airlines you would be using, or you would be using train or road transport, how you would be reaching there, what would be the days, what should be the best time, what should be the best packages. For example, there are several places in this country, very interestingly, where you go to that place up till a particular date and the rates are X, and just after that particular date the season officially changes, so rates are divided by 2. So, many people they go there by a margin of 1 or 2 days basically, because there they get the best rates kind of. Information search brings in so many things. Now, intelligent marketers or hoteliers, if they actually know this, that this is how an evaluative customer is thinking actually, and this is how he would be reaching to the kind of, and there is a customer who wants to come to this place, wants to stay in a beautiful hotel, but does not want to pay that kind of money, and there instead of losing all the customers just because the season is getting off, you still want hotel to be full or having larger number of customers. So, you advertise specific message for those customers that after this date the rate would be divided by 2, because the premier customer would have gone by that time and this customer is just looking for that window. So, he will compromise let us say the exact seasonal advantage, but by 1 or 2 days he knows that it does not matter too much, although might be in psychological perspective, but reaches there, takes the advantage of same facilities and lower prices. So, information search and alternative evaluation, it's a very beautiful kind of and it's a wonderful kind of an understanding wherein you have so much to pitch in, starting from which sources of information he is searching for, why would he search for X kind of an information. You see, many portals are serving that purpose today. Have you heard of Trivago, an aggregator who just gives you the clues from all the search engines and websites and wherever kind of, and they did well. They take you to different kinds of portals basically, and they give you comparative prices. So, information searches, you just go to Trivago, policybazaar.com is advertising too much on this actually, and they are banking upon information search. They say that come to us, look for different policies and then go to policies. What are they gaining? We will talk about that later on. There is a business model associated with that probably, but the point is that this is how information search is being fed. So, and the story starts from personal experience and prior knowledge, and if the experience is there, then attitudinal support is already there. So, you see, when you start searching for something basically and you want to weigh the alternatives, we have seen that, and you have experience related, for example, you have been frequently traveling in that season. So, definitely you will immediately look into how to weigh the alternatives. If you do not have experience, you would try to take a cue from there. So, if you have an experience, then you have some categorical thought process around that, means attitudinal support is there. So, it is the beauty of this basically, and there is a lot of scope on what you can, what integrated marketing communication can do during that particular kind of time basically. There are several cruises which actually ply on specific dates for specific kinds of customers actually. For example, in offline education days, every holiday is to be planned for families who have young kids. Every holiday has to be planned according to their holidays actually. So, if the school is opening, holiday can't be there, and if it is their vacation, then everything has to be arranged accordingly. Marketer knows this, marketer understands this, marketer rationalizes that with specific kind of a message. Marketer understands whatever you do, for example, on Dhanteras before Diwali, people would purchase something, they will definitely. So, marketer knows that, and that is where and people would start thinking in terms of what would they purchase. People start planning for gold purchase, people start planning for, and during those days you start watching those kind of advertisements wherein diamond is forever and this and that, wherein those kind of nakshatra and Tanishq and all these, so many advertisements from all the sides start moving in. And I remember Mr. Amitabh Bachchan in one of the advertisements with Mrs. Jaya Bachchan. I don't remember the name of the advertisement, that's for you to find out. So that was wonderful advertisement wherein, he goes to the shop and he looks into several options and finds that some options are not so costly. So that just to tell the common man that diamonds are for everyone or jewelry is for everyone, and come to the store and so on. And you see, this may be seen with the reference to internal search, wherein the memory of all the details of a message are already there, and it may get converted into consideration search wherein people may generate alternatives. So, you see, if you have experience, you have attitude, so internal search perspective goes to consideration. And as I told you, one of my favorite examples is courses, programs, bachelor's courses, master's courses and so on. And this is, many of you would have gone through, or you would be going through at this moment. You would have chosen this course through this process only basically. So and educational, should I say industry, that is not very right, but still what else can you say. So, educational institutions at large, they start pouring in admission advertisements when? Just at the time of the entrance exams, national level entrance exams, or just after that, or before admission seasons, and then they know that there might still be some students who are looking for options, good options. They do not want to compromise on courses, but they can think of something basically and so on, and so many messages they start coming at that particular time. So, need recognition entails information search and evaluation, and finally consideration set comes up. Very simple, looks good, it is not that simple, we will see why later on. Now, you see, many times top of mind awareness works actually, and that is where communication again comes in. Keep on hovering on things basically, you keep on hammering with lots of advertisements, full page advertisements in newspaper, then television advertisements and internet messages and mobile messages, and somehow precisely at the time when the customer is actually thinking or searching for that particular kind of an information. Marriage season, for example, in India, I can talk about India. 6 months before the marriage, story goes on, what to be purchased, how it is to be purchased, what kind of negotiations can be done, which are the places from where it is to be purchased. Many people, they purchase several things. Marriage requires lots of arrangements, although I am not very much in favor of lots of expenditure in marriages, and I am absolutely against dowry, but let us talk of purchases only. So, marriage season, people prepare for that basically. So, you see, that top of mind awareness wherein stacked integrated marketing communication will generate the existence of the brand in consumers' consciousness even before the consumer may need it. I have seen parents of adult children talking about what they would do in their sons or daughters' marriage and what they would purchase, and even prospective brides and bridegrooms, they are also talking about what they would be purchasing in their kind of. So that is how things are. And then comes in external search, wherein the consumers would surf through alternatives online, offline, and they would go through websites, consumer reports, YouTube videos, and detailed informative advertisements. And at this particular time, the consumer would be stopping by on related messages, or such messages would be gaining his attention automatically. You see, you are feeling hungry as I told you, and suddenly pizza advertisement comes in front of you. So, it directs you there, and in shopping mall it usually happens. Basically, you enter there, you are feeling I would eat something, I would eat something, there is a roll on going on, and suddenly your eyes is catched by the donuts. Then you feel like, no, it is lunchtime, should I be going for donut? Leave aside, I usually take lunch so many times basically, so let us eat donuts today. If donuts wouldn't have been there, something else would have gained your attention. Many a times you are roaming around with friends, and somehow you look at products themselves are their own advertisements. Many a times you are going through a bazaar and you look at a chaatwala, and friends they stop and so on. So there are several kinds of, you see, message comes in any form. It can come in the form of designated visual, audio visual, whatsoever, and we have talked about this earlier as well. So that attention would be gained from the side of the message automatically, almost automatically, and this is how communication is actually accompanying information search, evaluation, need recognition, and it is going all through as far as the situation goes. If the marketer systematically understands this, and they do, that is precisely, I will give you a very pertinent example before closing this session. You talk to an inexperienced young mother, that means when she has her first child in her hands, and she wants the best nourishment for that child. What kind of protein supplements, what kind of food supplements, how she should feed her, what kind of that is where need recognition is there. Starting from need recognition, she starts looking at advertisements which are coming all around. Before becoming a mother, she never realizes and she never looks into those advertisements basically. Has she ever noticed those brands? Never, never. Has a young father, has he ever noticed the advertisements of Pampers and Huggies before that? Never, never ever. But as soon as he becomes the father, and believe me, the very first day, he watches that advertisements anywhere it comes from, Huggies and Pampers, because there is where, and marketers know that. That is why several hoardings of these kind of products are around the hospitals, maternity hospitals, you will find those. And you see, this kind of a particular thing basically gives us that their inexperience is leading them towards a particular kind of a need, which is through to information search and then evaluation, and marketer knows that, and they meet at one point, and that is why Huggies, Pampers, product supplements, Johnson & Johnson's, feeding bottles, and so many things, they constitute a very large part of purchases of new parents. I will leave you with this thought and come to you later on with the next section related to alternative evaluation further, and then going on towards the other stages as we have talked about, purchase and post purchase. Till then, goodbye.